Egypt, 3,000 years of history and synonymous with ancient wonders, majestic pyramids, and fascinating hieroglyphs. But as the country embarks on a bold journey to modernize, a new chapter is being written. In 2016, the Egyptian government planned and promised to transform and take bold steps into the future with Egypt Vision 2030. The ambitious project at its core, the new administrative capital to replace the current capital of Cairo. With a projected completion date of 2030, the new capital should be a beacon of progress and a revival of society and the economy. But who really benefits from this new visionary capital? And will this bold vision for the future be a game changer for Egypt or a costly mistake? The actual capital of Egypt, the historic and bustling city of Cairo, is currently in bad shape. Running of the government is inefficient and infrastructure is crumbling. There are approximately 10 million people as of January 2023 living in an area covering 3,085 square kilometers. If the suburbs and outskirts of the city are included, upwards of 20 million people populate the current capital of Egypt. The city is highly polluted due to the high density of inhabitants and vehicles, and poverty is still an issue at the top of the agenda. There are constant traffic jams that cause social and economic issues as the entire city regularly gets held at a standstill. The effect is doubled when the state visits require entire streets to be barricaded, and residents have no other option to get to or from work. The plan to develop a new administrative capital was presented as a relocation and reconception of the current administrative center in Cairo. This futuristic metropolis, rising from the desert sands, promises to revolutionize the way Egypt functions. As we've just seen, Cairo is in dire need of new infrastructure and more space, but instead of rebuilding, the Egyptian government has chosen to relocate. Specifically, they are placing the new capital 45 kilometers southeast of Cairo in the desert. The new capital should be able to house anywhere from 6 to 6.5 million people. This new capital in the desert is one aspect of the broader Egypt Vision 2030, a long-term development of the country in line with the United Nations Sustainable Goals. A backbone of the overall plan is, as described by the Egyptian government, improving the quality of life of the Egyptian citizen and improving their standard of living in accordance with principles of justice, social integration, and the participation of all citizens in political and social life. Hence, the timeline for this visionary project is due around 2030. The main goal? To place Egyptians at the center of a new phase of administration and economic growth, and to breathe new life into the socio-economic structure of the nation. Visionary and laudable, yes, but to date these goals appear unattainable. This new capital is literally being built from the ground, in this case the sand up. The area is projected to reach up to the size of Singapore in surface area, approximately 734 square kilometers. This would bring social and economic benefits to the country, which, looking at the current capital, is in dire need. However, it's a huge and costly undertaking as well. Diving into the specifics, we see that, of course, this will be a modern, green, and smart city. The new administrative capital will have an estimated 35% of its electricity coming from 90 square kilometers of solar energy farms, to be built in the nearby desert expanse. Transportation will be revolutionized compared to heavily congested Cairo. In cooperation with the German automation company Siemens, the country will introduce a high-speed train to connect major Egyptian cities. By 2030, there was meant to have been 450 kilometers of high-strength steel rail laid. It's unclear if these rails and associated infrastructure have come to fruition. The new administration capital will house vital facilities where the trains are maintained and change directions. The new capital will also serve as a connection point for the high-speed train to the other major centers in Egypt. As of 2022, the train was built and exhibited by Siemens to Egyptian officials. We will see if the rest of the necessary infrastructure will be completed on time to have an operational high-speed rail connecting the new capital to the rest of Egypt. One sector named the City for Art and Culture is growing steadily within the limits of the new administrative capital. A brand new opera house with 3,500 seats has been built. A shiny new mosque overlooks the main speedway passing by the new capital. Commerce and administration will be housed harmoniously in uniform buildings with a modern aesthetic. The Bank of Egypt and the Egyptian Exchange have already relocated their offices and are operational. To entice young people and families to relocate to the new capital, 5 international universities will open campuses within the limits of the new capital. Another positive step was taken when the new administrative capital's central business district was opened. Here, 3 out of 20 planned mixed-use residential and commerce towers have been built. The area even received a special visit from the Prime Minister in January 2024. As with any ambitious state-led and long-term development project, there are growing concerns in terms of where and how the finances are spent. As we know, Egypt is filled to the brim with ancient artifacts, and the local and international community is understandably concerned about preserving these. The Egyptian government has promised to preserve cultural heritage while taking bold steps into the future with this project. However, most reports show that as of June 2024, the project is more building at any cost, and protect and preserve. Of course, the city is being publicized as a smart city. It would have a technology and innovation park. Africa's largest skyscraper has been successfully built. It will have a steel-built 10-kilometer-long river flowing through the city, which will mimic the path of the Nile River as it flows through the current capital of Cairo. However, public outcry has begun for a greater focus on human capital. One comment from an Egyptian architecture PhD graduate is as follows: "The present policies are more geared toward revenue and investments, focusing on achieving financial gain through providing luxury administrative, commercial, and residential buildings. But this will not be enough to achieve sustainability goals, and policies should be reconsidered to comprise investments in human capital." Although commercial buildings are being built, which could create jobs, it appears there has not, as of yet, been any measures implemented that would increase their quality of life. Moreover, solar panels would only provide a small portion of the energy required to run such an avant-garde city. As construction continues and the dust settles on this monumental project, a crucial question lingers: who will truly benefit from this visionary project? To answer the question, we must follow the money. Firstly, as part of the Egypt Vision 2023, this began as a state-funded and state-led project. Hence, all the goals and plans were directed and guided by the current administration and people in power, as opposed to individual private businesses and contractors. Then, the government turned to China to raise funds and has borrowed $3.4 billion. An additional $25 to $30 billion is being taken out of citizen taxes. What is most worrisome from the public perspective, both local and international, is the involvement of the Egyptian military. The military has essentially taken over the management and, importantly, the funding of the new administrative capital. This fact is difficult to ascertain, but as Al Jazeera reports, 51% of the administrative capital for urban development, a company which oversees the project, is owned by the Egyptian military, and the remaining 49% by the Ministry of Housing. Another independent reporter states, while the president has repeated on several occasions that the project would cost the state nothing, this report shows that on the contrary, most of the funding comes from state agencies, causing them to go into debt with public banks and the national treasury. Concerns for the ramifications and future of the project are growing daily. Not only is Egypt in great debt due to this massive undertaking, but the military and a select few appear to be the ones who will benefit most by the project's theoretical completion in 2030. What are your thoughts? Will Egypt's new capital flourish, or will it drag the country into further debt? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Watch more on the Urban Jungle channel.